breaking down all the plays and getting you in the action. We've got you covered all season long. Welcome to the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into Season 2, Episode number 17 here on the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza. We are deep into the 2023-24 high school basketball season. So as we get things started off, Justin, why don't you tell me your biggest story of our young season so far?
All right, I got one girls, one boys. The start girls, Sinai Douglas, one of the top players in not only Northwest Ohio, but across the state, across the Midwest. She's headed to Michigan State University, torn ACL in their early season game against Central Catholic. A crushing loss for the Spartans community. Such a great player, not only in basketball, but cross-country, track as well. They still beat Rogers, Scott, and Waite, lost to Central, Solon, and Olmsted Falls. So Coach Dane Franklin has his work cut out for him without his star player. But Sinai is going to battle back, has a great demeanor about it. And Robin Freilich, former BGSU head coach, now at Michigan State, still going to honor the scholarship. So applause for that. And then boys side, it happened on Tuesday at Lima. Whitmer, Lima senior. Whitmer goes on the road in overtime to win 78-74. Micaiah Leach and Antoine West, the two prominent names on the Whitmer program, in the program, combined for 57, 30, and 27 points on the road against a coach-led team from Quincy Simpson. And everybody in Northwest Ohio knows how good of a coach he is at Lima Senior. So for them to do that on the road, it was kind of a statement game. And who's good, who's going to be good, not only now, but possibly in February and March. So those are my two stories.
All right, I like it. Mike Rob, what you got for us?
That was a great piece right there about the Whitmer team. That was a great game. The one thing that I did catch on Twitter was the guy getting dunked on. Now, that was an exciting play there. But what I'm more excited about, is the St. John-St. Francis game from last week.
Yeah.
What a game that was,
Yes.
To see Taylor, in the second half of that game, score 12 points. He didn't score it at all in the first half, and then to come out with an explosion out there. And then Murphy as well. I'm pretty excited about what Heck can do, and the Horton brothers. So that was a fun basketball game to watch, and those are two teams I think are going to do well in the Catholic League in Detroit.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about St. Francis later on in today's show. But coming up on today's show, we're talking our Shawn's Irish Tavern Player of the Week. We're keeping it in the family this week, back-to-back weeks. And we're also going to be talking about Anthony Wayne at Whitmer in a girls basketball matchup. That's going to be a big one. We got a fantastic highlight play coming to us from the Eagles in Toledo Christian, and also our Game of the Week preview, and so much more here on today's episode of the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza. Make sure you tune in each and every week, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. live on BCSN. You don't want to miss us. And if you do miss us, then make sure you catch up on our audio podcast platforms throughout the week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and BCSNNation.com/podcast. And also, we've got content going out every single day. If you miss us on Sports Nightly, make sure you check out our social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube the next day, each and every week, at BCSN Sports to catch all of the content that we are putting together here at BCSN. All right, let's get things started off right now. I mentioned we're going back-to-back with the Pikes for the Shawn's Irish Tavern Player of the Week. All right, welcome into our Shawn's Irish Tavern Player of the Week here on the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza. This week, we're sticking with Anthony Wayne, but this time we're going to the boys' side. Last week, the winners were Leah and Mallory Pike from the girls' side, but this week we got Griffin Pike. He had 22 points in Anthony Wayne's win over Southview last week, 58-53. Griff Pike talking about how his dad being the best overall athlete in the family. And at this point, there's a big family playing sports here, Justin.
Yeah, top notch. That picture there, I'm going to give him a B- on the facial hair. Okay. with room for growth to a potential A-level stash there, but got a little work to do for Griff there. All jokes aside, yeah, they mentioned Mark Kuntz was the one who did the story there, yes. And he got the question out there, who's the best athlete, because you mentioned last week we had Leah and Mallory Pike, the younger sisters, and then Griff Pike, and then Garrett Pike plays baseball for University of Toledo. So plenty of talent across the board. And the thing that I like about it, they're not just single sport athletes. They play at least two, maybe more sports. I just like what Coach Josh Arthur said about him, the fact that he's so versatile. If you want to hit a jumper from the outside, if you got a three-pointer, if you need him down in the post, you need to get a rebound, he'll knock down some free throws. I'll throw down a dunk like he did last week. So he's a quote-unquote jack of all trades is what Coach Arthur brought up. But and the other thing that stood out to me was he said in some ways because his older brother is such an elite Division I athlete, he sometimes lives in the shadow of his brother. That's what he said, not my words, his words. So it's great that he's getting the recognition. You know, his community voted for him in our Player of the Week poll.
Absolutely.
And then he's getting the recognition here on the podcast and elsewhere. But the play that he does on the court and then in the football field, stands out for many reasons. And I remember last fall in the football season, Coach Andy Brundegard said, hey, when we need a go-to play and we need to make a crucial play, a first down, a touchdown, a winning play, they relied upon Griff Piker, designed the play or called a play where he was the central target on the wide receiving angle. And he did tremendous work on the football field. And a lot of that's why I push for multiple sports. All of that stuff translates from one sport to another. Hats off to Griff Pike. Congrats.
Yeah, absolutely. Pike, keeping it in the family, like you said, to have the sibling rivalry going on from older brother to younger sisters, the competition in that house has to be, top tier, So congrats to him for stepping up and dominating the way he did. That game versus Southview, I was able to watch a little bit of that, and, he was just on point. The last two games, they didn't get the victory like they wanted to, but, this is still a good team to watch.
What is going to be important for that team moving forward? Talking about Griffin Pike here, what is he going to have to do in order to contribute and help that team kind of rebound here after a couple back-to-back losses?
He's going to have to continue to average over 20 points a game, and I think for them it's going to be defensively. And can they find that depth on their bench, to step up and help them out, to be able to get those points in the late minutes of the first quarter and the late minutes of the third quarter? Can you get that rally from your sixth and your seventh man on that bench? And I think this team is developing in that type of way.
All right. Well, congratulations to Griffin Pike on winning this week's Shawn's Irish Tavern Player of the Week. Make sure that you guys vote. You can vote each and every Friday throughout the duration of our 23-24 high school basketball season during Game Day Nation. You can go to our Twitter Friday night at 10:30 p.m. That poll runs through Monday at noon. Let your voice be heard each and every week. All right, let's move in now. We're talking about Anthony Wayne, so let's go to the girls' side, Justin, as we're talking about Anthony Wayne at Whitmer this week. So Anthony Wayne has big wins this season so far over Findlay, Fremont Ross. Whitmer, their only loss to Findlay so far. So what are we seeing in this big matchup?
Yeah, that loss, Findlay at Whitmer, last Friday, Findlay took charge up 9 at the half and then put it away in the second half. And I think that was their blemish. So far, Whitmer has beaten St. Ursula, Napoleon, Clay, and Perrysburg. And in that game against Perrysburg, and they also beat Springfield on Tuesday night. So off to a 5-1 start. The close game against Perrysburg, 37-34. Mackenzie Royal Davis had 14 and 11 in that game. She also had a big game on Tuesday night against Springfield. So they're getting the job done. I think Coach Leon Kernard would like to see a more consistent effort throughout the duration of a game as opposed to a great quarter here or a great quarter there. But you can't do too much complaining about a 5-1 record. But then with Anthony Wayne, the balanced scoring attack. We talked about the Bender sisters, the Pike sisters, Sophie Smith, Tatum Roeder. This was the preseason coaches' number 1 and number 3 team. Anthony Wayne picked to win the Buckeye Division in the Northern Lakes League. Whitmer picked third. So Coach Jamie Karter and Leon Kernard, both two well-respected coaches in the area. And this has the makings. We talked about the Lima Senior game against Whitmer on Tuesday on the boys' side. Same thing, I think, with this Anthony Wayne at Whitmer game on the girls' side, where it's a good test. We're still in December. A lot of coaches still trying to figure out rotations and who's going to get a majority of the minutes and situational, who's on the court. So I think this is a game that is going to set the pace, if you will, of, a good caliber and barometer of what type of team we need to be.
Yeah, and with that, and where the pressure comes from for Whitmer. They're going to dominate you down low in the post. You talk about Davis and Royal Davis and how she does well down there. But the key to this game is is can they stop Bender and company out there on this outside? We know how well they pass the ball at Anthony Wayne. They like to share the rock and they like to move it around pretty effectively. And that's the pressure that Whitmer's going to find out about. They're going to see that press. They're going to see that defense, locking up their guards. I think that's probably the part where Whitmer needs to kind of continue to develop as the season goes on is with their guard play. And if they can get better there, I think this is going to help that basketball team out. But right now, it's almost like it's not necessarily a one-trick pony, but it's almost a one-trick pony for their squad.
Yeah, to give a super early quick prediction, what are you thinking between these two games? This game right here.
I think if you if just looking at the past records and how these teams are playing right now, it looks like Anthony Wayne probably is going to be the one that runs away with this.
All right. Well, we will find out this week. Let's move in now to another game. We're going to go to the boys' side of the ball. We're going to head over to the City League. We've got a Scott at Rogers matchup. The Bulldogs and the Rams facing off. This league, by the way, the City League this year, pulling in Lima Senior, a new addition to the league. And a lot of people looking at Lima Senior to be a front runner in that league so far. It's a little tighter, perhaps, here at the beginning of the season than maybe we were expecting. Looking at common opponents between Scott and Rogers right here, Mike Robb. Rogers and Scott have both lost to start with almost identical scores, 43-35 for Rogers, 45-37 for Scott. So when we're looking at this matchup right here, what are we seeing?
And like you said, the common opponent loss, and for Scott, actually just going to Lima Senior for a second,
sure.
How surprising is it to see Scott Bulldogs get that victory?
Yeah.
That was a big victory right there, to get the season really started on the road for Lima Senior. You thought they'd go over there to Scott, but it's tough to play over there at the Bulldog House. That is one of the coolest gyms. Period. I love calling games from there. Brad, make sure I'm calling some of them games. All right, at Scott High School. But more importantly, this is a team full of seniors. We know Daryl Barnett just got an offer from UT.
Yep.
Hopefully he's committing there and being a Rocket. Would love to see that happen. But this team is senior led. They got the size. They're athletic. And this is a game that, you're going to see Rogers going to have to play them extremely tough and stay out of foul trouble if they want to win this basketball game here, Justin.
Yeah, I know you spoke highly about Keith Tate and your previous relationship when you guys were both at Bowser, and now Keith Tate, the head coach at Scott. They're picked number 2 right behind Lima Senior in the preseason rankings. And then the 2 wins, they're 2-2 so far for Scott. They beat Springfield, beat Lima Senior, like you mentioned, then they lost to Pickerington North. So just like any coach, you're kind of looking for a little bit more consistency. Same thing for Ramon McBrayer, the head coach at Rogers. They're off to a 1-3 start, lost to Beechcroft, Bowling Green, and start, and then beat Springfield. Springfield, a team that's always well coached by Kyle Linehan, but has a lot of parts to replace from last year. So this is a pretty solidly even matchup, I think. I think Brendan picking out some good games for us to discuss in the sense that these are kind of evenly matched games where you're going to get a sense of what type of team you need to be and what you can be. So this should be a solid matchup that could play out how at least maybe the next few weeks of the basketball season are going to play out.
Do you think the win from Scott over Lima Senior, do you think that has any mental aspects to them going up against this one?
Yeah, because of the reputation that Lima Senior has, no matter what. I mean, obviously in any program you're going to have occasionally with coaches like that, you're going to have elite level talent where the expectations is Final Four to Columbus, Final Four to Dayton now. But no matter what, you're going to have a solid program, a well-coached team, a disciplined team. So if you go and you beat a team like that, it proves like, hey, you can always harken back. If you're a coach and you are playing in another game where you're down at halftime, you can say, hey, guys, we've done it before. I believe in you because I've seen you guys do it against a top caliber opponent like Lima Senior. So absolutely, that game can be one that a coach puts in his memory bank. Hey, we've been there, done that. We've shown what we can do. Let's do it again tonight.
All right. I like it.
I was going to tap in on that and just say, and with that being said, they won't see Lima Senior again until, the City League championships and they get into the Final Four. So, this is going to be something that's going to fester a long time for Lima Senior and let it build up. So these two teams will get one more opportunity potentially to head up. So that's going to be a fun match late in February.
All right.
Got a long time to go till we get there, though.
Yeah, we do. It's a long season, and we're here for it. All right, let's move in now. We got Perrysburg at Southview on the boys' side here in the NLL. Perrysburg, a big win over Springfield, 70-52 so far in Southview. A close game against Anthony Wayne, 53-48, as we already mentioned, with the player of the week, Griffin Pike, earlier on in the episode. So, Justin, looking at this matchup right here, what are we seeing?
So with Southview, they got a first-year coach in Dennis Springs, but he's not necessarily a normal first-year guy, and I'll say that because he was at Springfield, so in the Northern Lakes League, an assistant under Coach Kyle Linehan, and he's got a solid team with Micah Bays. He's going to be a top recruit feature this Friday night during Game Day Nation. Joel Sebastianelli doing that story. He averaged 19 points per game last year. And I think that Southview has a bad taste in the mouth from last week, losing at Anthony Wayne. They led that game at the half, led it through parts of the third quarter there in the second half, and lost to Anthony Wayne by 5 points. So I think that they have proven that they can compete, but they got to get over the hump. And this is another test for them against Dave Boyce, who's 22 years into the program at Perrysburg. They got Austin Schultz and Gavin Fennekin. So this is another game on the flip side for Perrysburg. They've only played one game and beaten Springfield. This is a Thursday night game. So the fact that Perrysburg can come into this game with not a whole lot of reps under their belt as far as real game action. I know they've done plenty of inter-squad games and then plenty of exhibition games prior to the start of the season. But this is another great test game. We like the matchups when it's within the NLL, but you got the Perrysburg in the Buckeye division and Southview in the Cardinal division. But I think with basketball, Mike, Rob, as compared to football, when you're going from the Cardinal to the Buckeye, a little more even playing field when you're talking about basketball and 5 players on the court at one time for each team. So Southview, I think both teams should say we should be the favorites in this game. I think that's how even of a matchup it can be.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely a lot of balance here. And honestly, I think if this is going to be a game that Southview wants to win, Micah Bays is going to have to drop about 40. He's going to need to find a way to get his teammates involved, and they're going to have to ball out, and that's just kind of what it's going to be for this Southview team. Perrysburg, they got a really good system. They've been running their system for year in, year out. You know what you're going to get, a well-coached, fundamental basketball team, and you talk about it all the time, Justin. That's where you win games at. They're going to have to stop Schultz. He is a sharpshooter. That kid can put up points, and that's going to be something that they're going to have to worry about on the defensive side if you're Southview. Perrysburg can be a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion, if they can start taking the ball to the rack a little bit. I think that's going to help them out and help open up those outside shots.
All right. Well, you guys can catch this game Thursday night. Justin mentioned it. Thursday night at 7:15 p.m. live on the BCSN app. So make sure you guys check that out. All right. Let's jump in now. We're going to our clip of the week. All right, welcome into our clip of the week here, brought to you by Renewal by Anderson, here on the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza. This week, we are taking a look at a...
Play that video. Play that video.
We're going to jump straight into this one right here. We got Toledo Christian and Eden facing off this week. But check out this awesome play here by Karter Koester, driving it to the hole. A spin move underneath the rim and then dropping it in. Mike Rob, what are we looking at here from Karter Koester?
You looking at Karter Koester. This guy, he's a dominant force. We know that when we say his name, usually because he's scoring touchdowns, but now he's getting reverse layups and underneath with a lot of English on that too. This kid's a special athlete, and Justin talk about it all the time. If you're one of the best players at your school, you're going to play multiple sports because you're going to be needed to. And that play right there, look at the kid on the baseline, heads on his hand like, oh my goodness, because it was that special.
He's just so creative. I've seen him do juke moves on the football field. Yeah. And then what he works at it, man. He puts the time, the effort. Just talking to the coaches over at Toledo Christian about him. They've seen this for a long time and coming up through the ranks in junior high years and then through the ranks. In a smaller school, you're going to get opportunities. If you're a higher elite level athlete, you're going to be playing varsity early, not just your junior and senior years. So he was a first team All BCSN top 30 player last year on the basketball court. He almost made our top 10. A lot of top tier talent in our area when you're talking about the top 10. So I think he's got a shot he's definitely going to be on top 30 this year with a shot for top 10.
Y'all got to watch this teacher in the back left corner over here. Look at him in the gray shirt, blue shirt. Just watch him the whole time. He's like, oh my God. Oh my God.
Man.
He's a baller.
Absolutely love it. Now, real quick, looking at the whole team here in Toledo Christian, they're dropping more than 70 points through their first 3 games of the season so far, Justin. I mean, this game, and both sides, by the way, girls and boys, being incredibly strong here in the basketball for Toledo Christian.
Yeah, we talk about not just having a single season success, it's building a program, and Coach Tim Wensink over there on the girls' side, and then Tyler Boris taking over for Dave McWhinney, a long-time, 2-decade-long coach for the Eagles. Tyler Boris knows how to do it right to build that program, and what I like about a lot of Toledo Christian teams, literally across the board, all sports, they're balanced, not just a single star. Maybe a little caveat with Kendall Braden there being a high-level player, future UT Rocket on the girls' side, but there's plenty of talent. They spread the wealth. No ball hogs or showboats at Toledo Christian. They do it right, and they're having success. They'll be tested a little more within the TAC with Emmanuel Christian kind of coming up the ranks here in recent years, but they'll also test themselves outside of the conference.
All right. Well, if you guys want to catch more highlight clips just like this, then make sure you check us out on our TikTok. It's at BCSN Sports. We post highlight clips just like this each and every week. You don't want to miss it. Help us get to 10,000 followers. I'm telling you, these things are absolutely awesome. We post these every week. You don't want to miss it. All right. Well, we are in the basketball season, which means we've got the student section back underway. And this week for the Unison Health student section of the week, we're heading out to St. Ursula this week. Notre Dame is facing off at St. Ursula this week. We're going to be bringing you guys the chain. Make sure you show up, be loud, and be proud. We're very excited for this one. I'm excited to see what you guys do, St. Ursula. We're going to bring that out to you. So congratulations on winning the Unison Health student section of the week. And if you guys out there want to win next week for the Unison Health student section of the week, then make sure you share your photos and videos while you're there in the student section for these games. Share those photos and videos to us at BCSN Sports and use the hashtag SSOTW. All right, let's jump into another game we got going on this week. We've got a girls basketball matchup between Northview and Findlay. We mentioned it earlier. Findlay, a deciding win versus Whitmer last week, and Northview getting a big win over Napoleon. Mike Robb, this is an interesting one right here. Findlay's been showing some strength so far this season. What are we looking at here?
You know, when you take a look at this Findlay team, you know, the one thing that we do know is that it's just tough to win on the road down there. You know, and this Northview basketball team, you know, I'm not going to say that they're out of contentions in this game, but it's going to be tough. They're going to have to bring their A game, and they're going to have to play really good on the perimeter versus basketball team. And it comes down to Northview not having as many turnovers as they have so far. You know, I watched a couple of their games and seen how they play ball. They seem like they're still trying to find a way to get their team like gelling the way they want to. It's still early in the season, but I look at this game and say to go on the road to Findlay and to see how Findlay's been playing so far and they're hot. You know, you're going to have to come down there and you're going to have to play extremely well.
Yeah, and this game is Friday live on the BCSN app, preseason rankings. You know, I think we can still find some validity in those because we're still early in the season. Northview picked 5th in the Buckeye. Findlay picked 4th. Coach Pat Sayer and Coach Brian Rosendale, 2 superb head coaches. But I really like what Caitlin and Madeline Steckschulte have done for Findlay. They've been able to rely upon them. You talk about consistency. Those, in my opinion, are 2 players, boys and girls side, that have both provided that level of consistency night in, night out, practice in, practice out. And it's led to a significant amount of victories thus far. I see Findlay having the edge in this one just based on results thus far, but I know that Coach Pat Sayer does a solid job. He had 4 starters coming back from last season where they kind of took some lumps, but got a lot of players, a lot of varsity minutes, and that could pay off in a very challenging league where they got to compete night in and night out. No gimme wins. A whole lot of gimme wins, I guess you could say, across the board all season long for Northview, and this is another example of that going on the road to Findlay.
Yeah, and talking about Findlay right there too, we mentioned earlier that Whitmer's only loss on the season so far has been to Findlay last week in that 42-27 win. So mentioning, you know, that mental aspect, kind of riding high from a momentum sort of game. I mean, Findlay certainly going to be having that in the back of their mind as they play this one.
Yeah, we talked about how you can go for Scott beating Limousin on the boys' side, and harken back and remember that, put that on the memory bank. Same deal for this one. Findlay winning on the road at Whitmer against a solid team, and that could pay dividends all season long.
All right, well, let's jump in now to our next one here. We got our Game of the Week preview. All right, welcome into our Game of the Week preview, brought to you by Dunn Chevy in Oregon, here on the BCSN Nation Podcast, powered by Marco's Pizza. This week, Friday night, 7:15 p.m. live on BCSN and the BCSN app this week. We got St. Francis back on our Game of the Week. They were there last week. They're back this week, but this time they're at Central Catholic. This game, Mike Robb, is going to be very, very interesting. St. Francis off to a strong start, 3-1. They lost last week, however, to St. John's in that very close 56-53 final score there at home in the pit, losing to St. John's. And Central Catholic coming out of the gate swinging with a big win over Anthony Wayne, 73-51. And at the end of it, though, in a new league, the Catholic High School League in basketball. And now, what are we looking at here?
Hey, one thing that you're looking at is Central Catholic's just riding high right now. That victory, last week was just very impressive, for them to step up and dominate the way that they did. 20-point victory. That's something that I didn't expect. Manning, Wardrop, Brenneman, this basketball team is extremely talented. And this is where I think it comes to be a problem for St. Francis this week. When they go to play at Central Catholic, it's not the pit. The pit's a little bit tighter. This court is way wide open at Central Catholic. So you got a lot more space. And the problem that's going to come into it is the Horton brothers. I watched them run up and down the court versus St. John's, and the problem, it seems, is having both of them on the court, it's going to slow down your offense. You got to slow down, you got to play half-court offense, but Central Catholic, they got a lot of skill. They don't really have too many big guys. I think their tallest guy on their team is about 6'2", so they like to run, they like to get out in space, and this is what we're going to have to see if Heck can have a heck of a game versus this basketball team.
Yeah. Not only him, but Elvis Soroka, both of those key players for Coach Jamie Kaczmarek, and two well-established coaches in this one with Jamie Kaczmarek and then Mike Floyd on the other side for Central Catholic. So that they're going to do the prep, do the research, do the scout, know what the best approach is, have a great game plan. Can a team stick to the game plan, or based on what plays out in the first quarter, second quarter, do they have to adjust their game plan and see if we have to do something differently? But with Coach Kaczmarek, we saw him do it at Cardinal Stritch. He has the experience at the college coaching level all across the country as an assistant. 14-10 last year. In the first year he was there, it was single-digit victories, but they've gotten steadily better. Some better players, some players that are developing and playing better within Coach Kaczmarek's system. So I think this game is going to be similar to last week's game that we were talking about with St. John's and St. Francis. I think that there's no of the three schools, Central Catholic, St. Francis, St. John's, in this league in Toledo. At least to this point, based on paper, based on early season results, I don't see one of those teams clearly heads and shoulders above anybody else at this point. Keeping in mind, Central Catholic has only played one game. There's not too many of their football players on the basketball team this go around. In years past, it's been filled, but not necessarily this year. At least some of the key players are not necessarily football players and basketball players. They still push back the start of the season as a result, so they only have one game. So maybe that plays a factor, a storyline coming into this one. One team's played one game, one team's played 4 games. How will that play out?
Sure.
I don't think it's going to dictate the game, but it could play a role maybe in the first quarter.
All right, Mike Robb, final thoughts here?
I truly believe that Justin hit it on the head. These two teams are going to play extremely well against each other, mainly because it's a rivalry. You throw everything out the window. You say, hey, this is a rivalry game. They're going to come out here and play. St. Francis is going to play one of their best games of the season, and so is Central Catholic. And if you're going to be at a game, this is the game to be at on Friday night.
All right. I like it. Well, talking about games on Friday night, Justin, what else do we have coming up this week here?
Give me that graphic full screen. There it is. Bingo, bango. That matchup we just talked about. Looking forward to that one live on BCSN. A reminder, all of the games, whether on linear TV or not, they're all on the app. So get your app downloaded. Plus, we'll take you to Bedford, a showdown with Ann Arbor Huron. We got Scott and Rogers. We talked about that one. And then a lot of girls games. So our early season Friday nights, we're seeing a lot of mixing with boys and girls games across the board.
Yes.
And we got Napoleon Southview, I think an evenly matched team in the Cardinal divisions there. And then we got Northview Finley. We talked about that. Northwood, Maumee Valley Country Gay, another solid matchup of two teams and their caliber of talent. And then in Erie, we got Huron at Edison and Perkins Sandusky. Always love when the rivalry games occur, and that one in Sandusky, a juicy matchup there that we always like to bring you on BCSN.
I love it. All right. Well, like he mentioned, all of those games you can catch live on the BCSN app this Friday night. A lot of those games starting at 7:15. We got an early one there, 6 p.m. for the Northwood at Maumee Valley Country Day. Thank you guys so much for stopping by this week. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, December 20th at 4 p.m. for a little, pre-Christmas episode of the podcast.
There we go.
So we'll see you then.